Masterclass today. My name is Anne Bacolod, and I'm actually one of the alumni of the Women of the World coaching program. And I'm also joining Isa and the rest of the coaches here as one of the principal coaches of this group. So follow us, please, on Instagram for those who haven't followed us yet. These are actually social media handles, and you can just scan the QR code there to join the community. I'd also like to introduce, of course, the rest of the coaches with the Women of the World program. I'd like to start off by introducing Isa Buencamino.
Hi.
Say hello. Of course, she's our founder. So follow her on LinkedIn. You can actually just scan the QR code there. Of course, with us also is one of the principal coaches, Jocelyn Go. Oops.
It's not in order. It's all right.
Sorry for that. Julie Reese.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Different hair since then. Need a new photo.
Nicer hair, Julie. Very much. Raquel Inwa. Raquel, would you like to say hi? Serpil Demirel.
Hi, greetings from Istanbul.
Agneta Olson, actually, she cannot join us today, but this is she. Her picture is representing her tonight. And last but not least is actually Catherine Ward, who'll be joining us halfway through the program. Also part of the team is Pat Chua, who really manages all of our programs, is huge help to all the alumni and even to the whole coaching team. So everyone, we have a really diverse group of people today, 22 people now, and I can see that actually we're all coming from all over the world. Honestly, I think this is the most diverse group I've seen. Could you just shout out either by saying where you're calling from or actually writing it on the chat? But it would be nice to hear your voices. Where are you all guys calling from all over the world?
Hereford, the UK.
Nigeria. So Turkey, UK, Nigeria. Singapore. I myself am calling from Singapore. I think we have friends from the Philippines also. London, Beijing. Wow, that's amazing. I think we also have representation from Australia. So really a very global group. Yeah. So thank you so much for taking time out and joining this masterclass, which is really going to be a very interesting topic. Yeah. Before we start, I'd just like to make a special shout out to the Luxlash community who are also joining us today. Luxlash is actually a beauty brand who strongly advocates women empowerment. Definitely an advocacy that we share, and we are very happy to collaborate with them. So thank you so much to Luxlash for their support. Now, a little bit about the Women of the World program. We'd just like to introduce this to you. It's an all-women global group coaching program for women who really want to proactively shape the next stage of their careers and their lives. So you see this here, it's for young women who want to unleash their potential, or if you're at the middle of your stage in your career, you want to live your best life, or if you're already, at a senior level and you want to build a powerful legacy, this coaching program will really help you clarify your goals and support you in really achieving them. Now, these masterclass sessions are actually supplementary sessions to the main coaching program. And our objective is really to deliver this monthly to help promote continuous learning, connection and bonding, also with the alumni and the whole community. So you continue to feel supported. Now, the sessions actually include keynote sessions from specialists, teach-ins or talks from inspiring female role models, one of which is, of course, we'll hear from today. So now, if you'd like to learn more about WOW, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will definitely book a non-obligatory call with you, with one of our coaches, so you could learn more about the program. All right. So, guys, are you very excited to hear about our topic today, which is Menopause Reimagined? I know when I saw this ad, I was very curious and interested because I'm approaching that stage of actually going through the next stage of our womanhood. So without further ado, I'd actually like I'm honored to introduce our speaker for today, and her name is Nikki Bright. Nikki is a leadership development coach and facilitator working with clients in various industries, including video games in the education sector. And one of her corporate clients is Rolls-Royce. Nikki is also a former head teacher with a background of 30 plus years in senior roles in education, including chairing the Girls Schools Association's Professional Development Committee. And her focus includes enabling women to be their best selves, ensuring sustainable high performance and in their personal and career development, whatever their role is and wherever they're placed. So without further ado, Nikki, please take us through Menopause Reimagined.
Thank you so much, Anne. And I'll just share my slides now. Yeah, Menopause Reimagined. Menopause is that one day that you have when you haven't had your periods for 12 months. Prior to that, it's your perimenopause, and after that, it's your postmenopause. And we talk so much about menopause, but actually we should probably be talking about perimenopause and postmenopause, because as I say, you know, menopause is just that one day. So let's reimagine this situation for ourselves. So first of all, who I am, thank you, Anne. You know, you've given a great explanation of the sorts of things that I'm doing. I'm an educator by background, and I've set up my company, Bright Lead, to support and develop leaders to be their best selves. And that's what I do, senior and middle leader programs with all sorts of different industries, working with middle and senior leaders to be their best selves, really. And I also have a passion project of raising awareness around the menopause, which has come from my own experience, but also experience of others, because much of my career has been in girls' schools. And in actual fact, it was never talked about until very, very recently. And I thought this was wrong. And being part of the professional development community, I thought we can help educate people. So my real passion is, as Anne said, you know, serving and inspire others to make the most of every opportunity for growth. And that includes around growth, around understanding of the menopause. So I think there are challenges and opportunities as far as the menopause is concerned. And whilst I've got some UK stats here, I know the situation is sort of very similar, if not exactly the same, in other parts of the world as well. We are a growing part, menopausal women are a growing part of the workforce. Certainly in the UK, we've got 1 in 8 over 50 in the workforce, so an important part of the workforce, fastest growing. And because people are staying on through retirement ages are getting later all across the world, there are more women in leadership positions going through the menopause transition as well, and more needing to be looked after. And in the UK, women's pension pots are half that, less than half that of men's, and teachers' pensions, because that's the sector I have come from, are 28% lower than men's, which is a better situation than general pension pots. And of course, lots of women take time out to have children and so on, but every woman goes through the menopause. And so, of course, in having that some time off with children, that may affect your pensions contributions. But there's a double whammy for women in that if they go part-time or reduce or leave work earlier than they might do otherwise, that also affects their pensions. And I'm passionate about this as a geographer with a background in economic geography, wanting fairer and better situations for women in old age. Poverty in communities and families and so on, not needing to having financial independence gives people choice, doesn't it? And so I want more women to have more choice over how they live their lives. Also, this age, the menopause sort of age, 45 to 60 odd, is the average sort of time when divorce is quite prevalent. It's also the average age when there are mental health issues and suicide is prevalent for young men. Suicide is more prevalent with young men. And also there's a lot of vocabulary and terminology in use around menopause, atrophying vaginas, the age, the language that's used, the medical language that's being used is just, very, very negative and sort of, it's not a sort of positive take on the language, is it really? And I think also there's a challenge because there's a lack of understanding, for example, that menopause is really just one day. And we talk about it like it is this stage of life, in our 50s and onwards. So there needs to be more understanding and education. There's some other figures here about from the UK, from a group called the Newson Clinic, who have done various surveys and come up with some figures that are quite shocking, which feeds into what I was saying about retirement and the ability to have your pensions contributions. If 25% of women going through the menopause consider leaving work, and 12% actually do give up work altogether. That's an awful lot of wise, experienced women who could be in the workforce. And I've got no reason to believe that these figures aren't very similar in other parts of the world as well. And if 1 in 5 women, 21%, don't go for a promotion that they might have previously considered, that is, as Isa said there, a lot of wise women that we're losing out on, and a lot of wise women that we could have the benefit of their leadership in those promoted posts as well. Part of that is because our confidence can be affected around this time as well. So what can we do to help women, in this phase, so that they not only benefit financially, but they benefit emotionally and spiritually as well? Why don't we make employers aware of their symptoms? And I'm hoping that through the work that I'm doing, raising awareness of menopause, that actually the conversation is starting much more in the places that I'm going into, and other places that people are going into around the world, and increasing employers' knowledge. So there's loads of symptoms. There's 40 odd symptoms, and each woman has their own unique combination of symptoms. And that's why it's quite often missed. We're not educated about menopause, certain perimenopause. Certainly, I was just taught about my cycles at school in terms of, how not to get pregnant unless you want to get pregnant. And then they stop. And hurrah, you're not going to get pregnant, then you don't need to think about it in that way, rather than, actually being talked about how this is a wonderful new phase. This is a natural new phase and a wonderful new phase in our lives. And, lots of people don't know about the perimenopause. Certainly I didn't know about it when I was going for a health check, when I took on my headship role, which we had to do at the time. Somebody mentioned it to me, but I thought, well, goodness me, that's not until I'm in my mid-50s, so I don't need to think about it. But actually, when you put pieces of the jigsaw together, some of these symptoms that are seemingly come and go, because our cycles come and go, our hormones come and go through the months, you start to see patterns of things and realize, so my itchy legs were actually my perimenopausal symptoms at that time. And as it says here, for 1 in 4 symptoms, 1 in 4 women, the symptoms will be very mild, but for 1 in 3, they will be severe. But I'm really interested about the women in between, because if your symptoms are severe, you may well seek help. If you are between the 25% and the third for whom they're severe, actually, there's a lot of women there, who could actually support themselves better, and who might be in the I might leave work bit. So wonky hormones aren't just the preserve of the teenager, is something I like to say. And I don't mean wonky in a bad sense. I just mean in a sense of them going out of kilter. And you can see that from the diagram here. Teenagers don't have the monopoly on that. There's a natural phase of teenage when our periods start, through pregnancy and through our menopausal years, perimenopause and postmenopause. And I love the way that the Chinese talk about it as being our second spring. So I think this brings this opportunity here for us as well. The second spring is a real opportunity for us to reinvent ourselves, to be our best wise selves, to think about our legacy and how we're supporting others moving forward in the future. It's a real time for us to reinvent ourselves and refocus ourselves on what really matters. Perhaps we're not supporting our children as so much. We've got more time on our hands, perhaps, and perhaps we are in more senior roles. And perhaps at this time, Also, you know, we don't have the responsibilities potentially of aging parents, although they can all come in a perfect storm, of course, as well. So let's look at how we can, you know, enhance and capture the opportunity of this wisdom and leadership that we can have from these women that otherwise might leave the workforce. And so let's, you know, really use them. So in the UK, there are 3 campaigns which you can follow on Twitter and Instagram, and you can follow them from around the world, obviously. And the 3 campaigns are about making sure that all healthcare professionals, GPs, receive mandatory menopause training at every medical school, because in the UK, it might shock you to know that although 51% of the population go through the menopause, and every woman will go through the menopause, it's not actually a part of compulsory training. That menopause awareness and guidance is in every workplace to support women to remain at work. So this is where that awareness raising is important. And then finally, that there's age-appropriate education on the menopause in the curriculum for every school, so that our young people don't have the sort of education that we had, and that they're better prepared for the future, boys and girls, because everybody knows somebody going through the menopause, whether that's their mother, their granny, and their partner, and so on. And so, you know, in the future, this is really important. So if you're interested in this, you know, these campaigns can also be transported around the world. You know, they are campaigns that are very prevalent in the UK at the moment. And they are also things that, you know, that potentially could be talked about elsewhere for it to become a global campaign. Certainly, I'm going to signpost some information later on coming from somebody in the UK, the Newson Health Clinic, which I've already mentioned, and they've got the resources translated into many different languages, and so there's the potential there for them to be used further around the world. So, and indeed, Anne, as you're saying, what percentage of companies really support and foster awareness of these campaigns? It is increasing, but there's still work to be done, hence the campaigns in the UK in itself. So we're going to go into our first breakout session, and we'd like you to talk about, you know, what challenges relating to the menopause have you observed at your place of work or community, and for yourself and others. I've sort of whet your appetite with the opportunities, but let's think about those challenges, and then we'll come back and talk more about opportunities moving further forward.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your mini breakout discussions. Would anybody like to share what their aha moments are during these little paired discussions?
I would like to share.
Yes, go on, Joss, you go first.
Is it me? Well, I think we're in a group with Gladys and Etta herself. You know, she's a mental well-being professional, and she shared some real life experiences. She's, you know, met with people, and I think for me, or for us, I think it was a life opening or eye-opening experience that, you know, we ourselves, we haven't gone through menopause yet, but soon, of course, you arise, and being aware of what will happen, I think is great. But I think worst of all is knowing that this is happening to centuries and centuries of women in their lives, and they have blamed themselves or kept quiet and suffered. I think it's just very disheartening and feels very unfair for these people who have gone through. And of course, definitely we will not have it happen to us now. But I think that was a really life eye-opening experience. Yeah, I feel really sad, actually. Sorry about that, but I just share how I experienced it.
Oh, Joe, so we feel for you.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
You know, sad for what's been happening to you, but in a way, we should rejoice that, you know, at least now we dare to talk about it, and we want to make a change.
Correct. And actually, I can empathize with you. I was really struck by the figures that Nikki actually shared about, you know, basically 25% actually have a lower retirement pot, and yet on average, you know, women live longer, and yet we have less to actually take care of our health and to actually you know, spend and have good quality health care. So yeah, that's also quite disheartening and sad. Thank you so much for that, Jose. Any other questions or builds or aha moments coming from the talk of Nikki? Yes, Julie.
And just to say, Vicky and I were talking about not only what we're seeing in our own workplace, but for our young people to be equipped with this knowledge as well, so they recognise that what's their mothers and aunts and sisters and teachers are going through. And I'm interested to ask Nikki, actually, what your thoughts are on at what age should we be talking to our young people about the menopause?
That's a great question, Julie. I mean, I think can be talked about with at almost any age, where you sort of are explaining why things are how they are. I mean, certainly when I started talking about it in my school, I had an assembly, and somebody said to me afterwards they'd overheard one of their forms saying to one of their friends, so that's what's up with my mum, you know. And so there was a growing understanding between the teenagers about what their mums, their aunties or whatever were going through. But I think you can adapt what you're saying to almost any age appropriately. You know, we've got quite often quite young children, sort of 8, 9, 10, 11, are being taught about, you know, the facts of life and period changes, certainly before they go to secondary school, perhaps in that 10, 11 age group. So it's certainly possible to put that into the, you know, and for women to talk about things like, you know, oh gosh, I've just got a bit of a brain fog moment here, so that actually you can talk about that with very young children, you know, and so that it can become common parlance that, oh, when you're older, perhaps you have brain fog moments, you know, and so it's just sort of normal and natural. You know, these highly respected women who are, you know, teaching these younger children who they look up to. It's just a normal part of the process and who they are. So I'm quite an advocate for talking to children at many different ages, from quite young, actually, in an age appropriate way.
Thank you. Really good.
Yes, Raquel.
I want to add something. My experience pretty much in my country, I'm coming from Dominican Republic, which is a Latin American country. And I was saying in one of our groups with Serpil and Anaya that we pretty much don't talk about this. First of all, because there's a big discrimination with employers not hiring people over 35, 40 years old. So you don't get a lot of opportunities in Latin American countries because they just do that discrimination, and it's not in just do it. They have the freedom to do it. My experience in the US, it is pretty much, I'm in my 40s, so I live in US now. So pretty much here they have campaigns for senior, for kids, for different things, you know, disables. In our countries, you don't see that. But I was talking to a doctor that actually I was trying to be preventive. I am not in menopause, but I'm feeling some of these symptoms that were listed. So I actually scheduled a meeting with the gynecologist just to talk about it, just so that she can give me some insight. And I didn't get anything because she said, first of all, we need to wait for our period to pause for 1 year. So that is the way they can diagnose that we have menopause. So meanwhile, I was trying to get some info. Can I take any type of supplements? Can I take anything for fatigue? Can I actually be more preventive? Nothing. It's just there's nothing we can do about it. We just need to take this as a sign. When you have a 12-month period that you don't get the period, then that is the sign. So I said, there's not education even in Latin American countries and US.
Raquel, your situation and your story is not uncommon in the UK, even because of the lack of education amongst medical professionals around menopause. So the Newton Health Clinic have produced a balance app, which is available globally. in which you can track your symptoms. And in tracking your symptoms, you're then able to print off the print off of how your symptoms have varied over the months, month by month, because of course the symptoms come and go. So you sort of think, am I imagining this? Oh, I must be imagining it. Am I imagining this? Oh, I must be, because they fluctuate. And so actually you can track your symptoms using this Balance app by the Newson Health Clinic in order to help that conversation. But unfortunately, you do need to educate yourself and then go to the doctor and say, I don't need to wait until I have not had my period for 1 year. Actually, I can get help sooner than that, because certainly in the UK, the NICE health guidelines show that actually women shouldn't be, for example, prescribed antidepressants as a first-line defense for low mood, but actually perhaps potentially HRT to see if it's hormonal, and then potentially antidepressants and so on. So there's a lot of misinformation around this. So educating yourself by following the campaigns that I've talked about is really important. There's a real problem in the UK and certainly around, but of women not having been misprescribed antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication when actually HRT would have helped them better. So it's a real issue. And Anne, in response to your question there around what can companies do, actually having somebody at senior level who is driving forward the menopause agenda and establishing a policy together on how people will be looked after through the menopause is a really powerful and effective way of demonstrating to everybody within the company that menopause is being taken seriously. Of course, the policy would need to be implemented and so on, but you can do that through education campaigns and having menopause champions and so on, who are people who would signpost people to correct information as opposed to being experts themselves.
So thank you for answering that question also, Nikki. So definitely it should probably also be part of the diversity agenda of companies. And Raquel, thank you so much for that wonderful example and also your tip, Nikki, about tapping into balance so that we can monitor our symptoms. Now, I'm sure we can actually have a longer discussion on this, but this is not the end of our session. There's still a part 2. So guys, I'd encourage you to put your questions on chat so that we can move on to part 2, which will be another very interesting topic on how to continuously reimagine menopause.
Great, thank you, Anne. So yeah, it's really about seizing those opportunities in order that we can thrive through menopause as well. And these are some of the sort of ways in which I think we can thrive through menopause as well. I'm going to start with the idea of education. And there's a couple of resources that I want to signpost you to. So first of all, there is this menopause awareness toolkit, which I wrote for diverse educators. There's lots of information here, which is specific to education, but also there are some more general resources within there. So it's a one-stop shop, if you like, and would take you then into other avenues that you might be able to follow that are more general workplace focused as well. And everybody around the world has access to these resources. So whilst some things might be more relevant to the UK, certainly there are things in there that would inform and educate, because I think if we inform and educate ourselves, we are better able to support each other and be allies and advocates for each other. Quite often women don't realise they're going through their perimenopause, and sometimes they need other people to point that out. So educating ourselves is really important. The second resource that I'm talking about is, as I've talked about Dr. Louise Newson a lot, her ambition is, to be, they are world leaders in terms of menopause education. They also offer a free online program for healthcare professionals. It's available around the world. In the UK, it gives healthcare professionals credits towards their learning that they need to do. But this library can be sorted by all sorts of different ways in terms of booklets, podcasts, leaflets, posters, and so on. And there's typical topics are right here. They have a section that is around work, menopause at work, this section here on work life, and there's all sorts of resources in there that could be useful to anybody in any workplace, including sample policies as well, so that companies could use some guidance for line managers and so on. They also, as I said, have translated a lot of the information in the library. At the moment, it's in Hindi, French and Spanish, and their aim is to have many other languages as well. So this is becoming more widely available, to people around the world. And as I say, they aim to be a global organisation. There's certainly, Dr. Louise Newson is involved in our cross-party parliamentary advisory group on this in the UK. She is a world-renowned as far as this is concerned. There are booklets in there, for example, this one on creating and working in a menopause confident organisation. That would be a great place to start, to Anne's question earlier. So that booklet is a great thing that you could use in any company around the world. There's also a menopause and relationships guide for partners, which I think is really important. It's not just about women being educated, it's also about our partners understanding what's going on for us. And within the working world, with our male counterparts understanding what's going on for the women that they are working with as well. And also, there's a lot of information around cancer and those with a high risk of high inherited risk of cancer. Lots of people think that you can't take HRT if you have or are at risk of having cancer. And with the modern HRT that's made from yams and is quite often transdermal, i.e. through your skin, it's much more possible to a much more wide audience with far lower risks than there ever were in the past, because the transdermal stuff obviously isn't being, whatever the word is, going through your liver. It's not being processed through your liver. So, it's much healthier. It used to be made of horse urine, which is horrible, isn't it? But yam's much nicer these days. So, what can you do? Talk about menopause. The more we talk about it, the more important, it becomes that people know about it, educating each other and providing tools like the Balance app. I wish the Balance app had been available when I was going through my perimenopause, because I would have understood what was going on for me more. Friends who've used it said it's absolutely brilliant. It's only with hindsight now I look back and go, oh yeah, that was a symptom as well. And you're able to use it then to argue your case much more, because in fact blood tests are no good to identify menopause. It should be symptom led. Symptoms indicate whether you're going through the menopause or not, because many women, they might use the Mirena coil for their contraception, so they won't necessarily know when they've had 12 months or without a period. So actually your symptoms are far more accurate indicator. Unless you're very young, in which case a blood test might be useful. And if you're older, they might check your medication is working for you and the levels of hormones that you've got. And there's two other great women to follow here, Dr. Nigat Arif and Dr. Naomi Potter. They are also online and represent different communities. So, great people to follow, very knowledgeable. So that's education, but it's also about fellowship and friendship. The more we talk about it, the more we laugh together about it, the more we listen to each other's stories and understand what's going on, then obviously we can support each other and understand more about what's going on. I think it's very important for our confidence and our anxiety levels, which it does affect many women. That the fellowship and friendship that you have with people around you can really see you through that. And some of these campaigns do provide that, actually, with the sort of network group that you might have. But there's also things that we can do for ourselves in terms of our lifestyle and lifestyle changes. Of course, if you are not getting good sleep, and then you don't feel like exercising, and then you comfort eat or comfort drink, you can do things for yourself by trying to make sure that you are getting good sleep, so that it does you can exercise and do appropriate. You've got to do strengthening exercises now in these, you know, as you get older, rather than the sort of cardio stuff. Although some cardio is useful. So there's some people. This lady here, Jo Weatherall, Menopause Mayhem and Teens. You know, that perfect storm of, you know, you're going through your menopause, your children are going through their teenage years. She supports that, and she's a great advocate of healthy lifestyles. And in the UK, we've got Joe Wicks, the body coach. I don't know if you've come across him around the world, but he is also doing lots of work with Davina McCall about perimenopause and menopause, and finding exercise and diet programs, or not diet program, healthy eating, basically, that's suitable for women going through the menopause. So, you know, it's easy to reach for the comfort eating, but let's see what we can do to support ourselves. And then, of course, there is HRT. You know, HRT can be useful, but there's lots of other things we can do before we get to that. So for some women, CBT is very useful around this time, because the hormones do mess with our heads a bit. And I certainly found it extremely useful that, you know, to reset your thinking, to build that self-esteem, and so on. And also, you know, the thriving in menopause is very much dependent upon how we lead people. So, you know, having more menopausal women as leaders, and leading with supporting others through menopause, I think they go hand in hand, actually, as well. Issa, I'm with you. The day I took my menopause medication, my gel that I put on, you know, I actually had a great night's sleep, and it made a huge difference. And in fact, I've been back to the doctors 3 times for more antibiotics for my chest infection. And in the end, she said to me, you don't need antibiotics. Well, you do need antibiotics to clear it. She said, but what you really need is a good night's sleep. And what you really need is to be on HRT to sort out your sleep. And she was absolutely right. I then got more energy. I then felt like exercising. I then, you know, started eating more healthily and felt more positive about myself. Supplements can be really useful, Reza. Certainly lots of people talk about magnesium helping sleep as well. I take a magnesium tablet before I go to bed. It's really helpful. And the other thing it's also helpful for joint pains and so on is, oh, I've just got a brain fog moment. I've forgotten the name of the thing. It's glucosamine. That's it. Glucosamine can be really helpful for ligaments and joints and so on. So, yeah, so sleep is really important, and yeah, sleep therapy, anything like that, would be helpful. Just flicking through the chat to make sure I haven't missed anything. Is that helpful? Oh, so my next, my final question then is for us to think about in the breakout. What can help women at your place of work or community thrive through the menopause? You know, reasonable adjustments in the UK that might be made are things like, you know, fans on desks and being able to keep your keep a change of clothes at work where you might be able to go and shower if you're having a hot flush, or keeping your sanitary items in the toilet so you don't have to march through the office or whatever with loads of bits and pieces. But there are all sorts of things to do with exercise and diet, and encouraging people to do things as part of the general well-being agenda, I suppose, as well. So that's my question for you all in the second breakout session.
Thanks, Nikki. Everyone, you have 4 minutes to discuss this with your partner. So you only have 2 to 3 people per group. So we'll see you back here in 4 minutes.
It's been really
21
interesting,
seconds.
Issa and Anne, and talking to Janelle about her mum, you know, having this conversation with her mum.
This meeting is being recorded.
It's important that we do.
Correct. So Julie, if you don't mind, I think we have everyone back. So guys, I know it was a short breakout, but I hope you had a really good discussion about what, you know, simple actions we can do to bring back. And Julie, as we were waiting for other people to come back, you were saying it was really a great conversation that you had.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, Janelle is young, she's a student, but she was just asking me what it's been like for me to have to go through the menopause, but how she can talk to her mum, and make her mum aware that she wants to know what her mum is going through and recognise the symptoms. So wonderful that, you know, we've got some young people on the call who are here because they're curious about that. And we were talking about the impact on relationships, and even things like if you've got a female boss in their 50s and they're going through the menopause, and you know, they could, it's not their personality, it's that they could be short one day, their moods could be undulating. And for us to just say, are you okay? Sometimes it's just that question, isn't it? How are you feeling today? Are you okay? Is there anything I can do? Do you need a glass of water? Do you need some fresh air? Do we need to open the window? I was saying in the previous session that my brother-in-law works for Tesco Mobile. He's the director there, and he's put a whole menopause policy in on the back end of me following Nikki and doing that work with Nikki. And now everybody in his organisation have to follow the menopause policy. What a difference. So let's have more of those conversations going on. Needs to happen.
That's an amazing example, Julia, and kudos
Well,
to
it
your
shows
brother.
what Nikki, the power of Nikki's conversations and how they start infiltrating. So thank you, Nikki.
Correct. And I think having those conversations, I love that that you highlighted the curiosity of the younger people, Julie, and that it's really an opportunity to get better understanding and empathy and communicate about what you know, women going through menopause already need. To go through that support. So thank you so much for that, Julie. Any other thoughts? Yes, Isa.
No, I wanted to ask Nikki. So Nikki, you've done this talk. You've done this talk a few times already, you know, across different groups of people and sectors. What has been the most, the biggest challenge, or what was the most, I guess, talked about issue?
That's a good one, and to a degree, it's been potentially access to support for people, medical, similar to what Raquel was saying earlier. You know, medical professionals not being well enough equipped, and therefore being unable to support properly. Not knowing enough about it. So you know, that ability to, as everybody's putting in the chat, to talk openly about menopause and it being okay to do so is really important, and that education of our healthcare professionals. So many women have to fight, therefore, for that support, and at a time when they're not really feeling up to it, in terms of confidence being blocked, or you know, lack of sleep, meaning they're not thinking particularly straight. You know, lack of sleep is a tool of torture for a very good reason, because it does drive you slightly crazy. And so it's really important that we are advocates and allies for everybody, and stand alongside women who are our bosses or our aunties or whatever, you know, and sometimes help them by going along to appointments with them as well, so that they don't feel like they're fighting this on their own.
Thanks for that question, Isa, and that very practical response, Nikki. Guys, I think we have time for one more sharing of aha moments or a question before we wrap up this very interesting topic. I'm sure 1 hour has not been enough to really talk more about this. This is just the beginning.
I think Catherine has something to add.
Yes.
I think it's great. I think it's really important that people talk about it. And I was reflecting in my breakout that really in the UK, it's probably only in the last 2-3 years that people have actually started to talk about it, which is incredible, really, that it's taken this long before it's you know, an acceptable conversation to be had openly in the workplace and other places. I think one of the things I just want to sort of talk about really is not make, as a consequence of that, which I think is fantastic, is making women scared of the menopause, because they really shouldn't be scared of it. It's an absolutely natural part of life, and just as all the other things that happen to women's bodies through their lifetime, you know, it's just natural. And I think how we balance that kind of, let's talk about it, let's stop, bring it out and not have it as a taboo subject anymore, which it was for a long time in the UK, to go and get too far and making women actually fear this life stage when they shouldn't be fearing it. Because it's quite liberating, actually.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, I think you're right, Catherine. You know, it is the second spring. You can reinvent yourself. You know, this is the time when most women, you know, there's a huge cohort of women setting up businesses in their early 50s. You know, it's really positive. It's a really positive time, particularly if we are supporting ourselves in the right sort of way, and we can do that to make it an even more positive time as well. So yeah, 100% with you on that, Catherine.
Oh, Raquel, yes. One last question or comment, yes.
This is more a comment, and this is more for us to be aware, and it's about, I have heard in different workplaces scenarios that us women are affected by our mood change or mood swings. And for me, that is absolutely a discriminatory thing against us women. So when we hear about these type of things, we can laugh, because I think because we just want to be kind and nice, we don't stand up and say, because I feel like other women actually have talked to me, you know, I'm sorry, I had this hormones thing and all that, and they were rude. But when you do these type of things, you are addressing the fact that we are accepting that we are different because of the way our body are composed, and it doesn't make any sense. So let's just don't laugh when they talk about our mood changes and things like that. Let's just make them aware about all this. I think information is power.
Brilliant, Raquel.
Yeah.
I want to move people away from talking about being hormonal and it being negative. You know, let's move away from those sorts of conversations. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, thank you so much for highlighting that, Raquel. And yes, emphasizing that, Nikki, as part of the awareness and really creating empathy. So guys, we're coming to the end of the hour. Nikki, thank you so very, very much for this wonderful topic and the chat and the engagement from everyone in this community. Before we say goodbye, I'd actually just like to hand over to Isa to share to us what is the next masterclass. If you've enjoyed this topic tonight, we hope you also join us for the next month's masterclass. Isa?
You're on mute. Isa, you're on mute.
Hi, thank you. So yes, here you go. So if you like today's masterclass, please join us again. We are Catherine Ward, who is here with us. Say hi, Catherine. She will be leading our next masterclass. The topic is women on boards and the stairway to the executive board. Actually, while Catherine is here, Catherine, do you want to say just a few things about what you're going to talk about next month?
Yes, so I've got a real bee in my bonnet around the fact that we hear so much about celebrity women that become CEOs or start major businesses or become superstars in some other way. And actually, I want to talk about normal women getting onto the executive board, people like me, people like you, and you know, how I did it, and that it wasn't always a smooth journey at all. It had its down, real road sometimes. And I just want to talk to people and say, you know, if this is something you want to do, reach for it. And these are the things I learned along the way as I reached for it. And it is open and it's accessible to you if that's where you want to fix your ambitions. And as somebody's just put in the chat, we desperately need more women to have the aspiration to go onto executive boards and to have the aspiration to go to CEOs. What's actually been happening recently is the Great Resignation. Women are opting out of that route. So far from the pipelines of women who'll be coming up to that level increasing, there's a risk of them decreasing. And of course, if you are on the executive board of a large organization, you're influencing an enormous community of people, the people that work for the company, the suppliers, the customers, the people that interact with that company on a different basis. So it's your opportunity to really have influence about what that company stands for, its values, and the things about where it might put its efforts and energies. So I'm going to talk about how I did it, but it will be a very honest to say, you know, it isn't a smooth path and things do go wrong. But if you're up for it, then anybody can, with the right steps and the right energies, get themselves onto the board of a company.
Fantastic. Anyone who wants to achieve it can do it. So we're looking forward to that. So, and that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Good month.
everyone.